Right. So is the SSPX in Schism Catholic robot friend?
Okay, so I need to be a little bit more nuanced about the issue. The SSPX is not in schism in a sense of like the Eastern Orthodox or like the old Catholics who rejected Vatican I and formed like the church at Uruk in the Netherlands. What they are is I would deem them they don't have a canonical status in the church, first of all. So their society has no canonical status in the church whatsoever, although their priests are validly ordained and the lay people are attending valid masses, but they're illicitly done because they're done without the explicit approval of the local bishop. Now, kind of with the SSPX, St. John Paul II warns in Ecclesia Dei. He says, while, attendance at one of their masses in of itself does not constitute a schism, hence why you can, on paper, totally fulfill your Sunday requirement at a chapel, attending their chapels over time would create a schismatic attitude that would separate yourself from the body of Christ. So my argument would be that they are not in, let's say, formal schism, but they are in material schism. And that is a very dangerous situation to be in because over time, the longer that you attend their chapels, and also I'm having a bloody nose,
Oh,
sorry.
nice. That's a great sign. Great start to that.
So the longer you attend one of their
Take care of that, bro.
chapels,
You're good.
okay.
All right. I want to actually, I have something I wanted to read from. These are proof that the SSPX are in schism. So from the Catechism of the Catholic Church says that schism is the refusal of submission to the Roman Pontiff. From the Code of Canon Law, it says that schism is the withdrawal of submission to the Supreme Pontiff. His Eminence Raymond Cardinal Burke, who might be Pope one day, says that the fact of the matter is that the SSPX are in schism. St. Pope John Paul II says, "Be aware that formal adherence to the schism of Archbishop Lefebvre is a grave offense to God." And Pope Benedict the 16th says he hopes that the schism of Lefebvre will not be of long duration. And Pope Francis says the desire to foster the healing of the schism with the movement of Monsignor Lefebvre. So that's 3 consecutive popes acknowledging that they are in schism. Now, they have not been formally declared in schism in any magisterial manner, correct? Like any formal whatever, but they are, as you said, material schismatics, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And the thing with material schism is that if I'm personally like disobedient as a layman, I can place myself in material schism, meaning I haven't maybe been formally excommunicated by my bishop or my priest or what have you. But
Dude, what
man,
is going on?
I get like random bloody noses. It's okay. I'll continue to
Yeah,
speak.
that's
So essentially with the issue of schism and what have you, it's kind of like when people might say something like, "Oh, well, I'm Catholic, but I refuse to obey Pope Francis." It's like, well, they're never going to maybe be formally excommunicated by Pope Francis himself or by a bishop of the church, but by placing enmity in their heart with the successor of St. Peter or even the other Catholic faithful, that's another adherence to schism. Like, for instance, you could say, like, I'm obedient to Pope Francis, but I refuse to associate with like my fellow Catholics and like worship or what have you. And that also constitutes a level of schism or material schism to it. And so with the Society of St. Pius X, what do they regularly say? But you shouldn't attend the ordinary form of the Mass. You should. They even say that you shouldn't attend canonically valid Latin masses. They foster the schismatic attitude where it's like, well, we're not going to directly tell you that there's no salvation outside of the Society of St. Pius X, but there's no salvation outside of the Society of St. Pius X, because their contention is that the church is so wounded by modernism that the only place you can get like valid instruction is at one of their chapels and from a society priest. And operating in that way is not going to be good for your soul. So whenever people tell me like online, they're like, so if I go to the Society of St. Pius X chapel, right, I fulfill my Sunday obligation. I'm like, yes, but here's the thing with that. You have to really examine your heart. Why are you wanting to attend their chapels so bad? Is it that maybe you came into town and they're the only mass you can find? or like you're on a trip or something, or is it because you're wanting to attend their chapels to have a formal adherence to their ideas about Vatican II, about the ordinary form of the Mass, or anything like that? And I would say for most people I talk to online, the latter is true. They're not just doing it because they like the TLM or something like that. It's that they like the ideas that the Society of St. Pius X promotes. And that is exactly the kind of materially schismatic attitude that St. John Paul II was warning against.
And didn't Lefebvre, like, his whole thing was criticizing Vatican II, but he signed the documents under no like force or anything like that. He willingly signed the documents of Vatican II, and you said twice, right? Like he filled in for somebody else as well. So he was completely fine with everything that was promulgated in Vatican II, and then I guess kind of had a change of heart. And didn't he say something along the lines that, oh, if he's excommunicated by the Catholic, by the Pope, that's fine because it's all Freemasonry now, so it's an honor to be excommunicated by Freemasonry.
Oh yeah, Spexo. I mean, he literally. So a lot of people don't know this, and a lot of the SSPX people like to depict the letter that he got from Saint Paul VI as being some sort of like martyrdom moment. But like the letter that he got from Saint Paul VI initially, like kind of condemning his behavior, was not due to the fact that he was just celebrating the traditional Latin Mass. That was not a problem for Saint John Paul II. Saint Jose Maria was actually allowed to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass for the rest of his life. He actually ironically called up Annibal Bunini. He called him up and said, "Yo, can I just continue to celebrate the TLM?" And Bunini literally told him, "You don't need my permission to celebrate the rite of Saint Pius V," and then put down the phone, and he was good for the rest of his life. So it's like clearly Saint Paul VI had no problem with the Mass that he himself had celebrated. So what was the issue? Well, the issue is Archbishop Lefebvre decided it would be cute to go all around France, all around Switzerland, all around Europe, and give these talks where he said, I don't know if we have a pope. Maybe the pope's gone. Maybe we don't have a valid pope. I don't know if the church is the church anymore. And a lot of sede vacantes that came from the Society of St. Pius X, like Bishop Donald Sanborn and Father Anthony Cicada, readily attest that to, especially early in the days of the society, it was very sede vacantes leaning. In fact, the founder of sede vacantism, or really one of the founders of kind of the sede vacantes theory, Father Gerard de, I think it's Lauriers is his last name. He was a teacher at the Society Seminary in Acon, and I don't think he got kicked out till like 1977 or something. And Father Cicada said that the only reason sede vacantes would get like kicked out is the archbishop would suddenly change his mind one day, but then he would also likewise change his mind about the what he deems soft liners, or really the people who later founded like the ICKSP or the Fraternity of St. Peter, or like any of the people who were like, yo, we like the Latin Mass and stuff like that, but we're not going to disobey the Pope. That's just erroneous. So it's like he really, was like, I would even argue a little bit of materially a sede vacantis. I mean, it was even said that like after when the ordinations happened, Bishop de Castro Mayer, and Father Cicada says this in one of his videos called Archbishop Lefebvre Sede Vacantis. He said that after the 1988 Acon consecrations, Bishop de Castro Mayer said, "We have no pope, we have no pope." So it's like there's been this like sede vacantis attitude, reminiscing in the Society of St. Pius X for a long time. In fact, there was a Catholic World Report article about a guy who used to be training to be a monk in the society, and he even said how he met a lot of people who essentially like held the sede vacantis viewpoint, but were maybe not open and about it, like Father Cicada or Bishop Donald Sanborn.
And Archbishop Lefebvre consecrated 4 bishops without the approval of the Pope, correct? And then the
Yes.
Pope excommunicated those 4 bishops, and they didn't formally excommunicate Archbishop Lefebvre because he basically excommunicated himself. And
Yes, that's true.
I was watching that Church Militant documentary. Maybe you mentioned it already, but he said that he invoked something that was used during like communist oppression when the bishops couldn't get in contact with the Pope. But the fact of the matter was that he couldn't really invoke that because that depends on assuming the Pope's corroboration, I guess, with that. And he had access to the Pope, didn't ask him and did it anyway, and then they got
Yes.
excommunicated. And actually, Bishop Williamson, yeah, he's one of the guys that like made me become Catholic. Like I think he is awesome and phenomenal, but unfortunately, he's not. I mean, he was excommunicated and then he came back into the church, but now he's still excommunicated now. So I hope he comes back to the church. But he's like his like stuff on like the Enlightenment and like his basic theory on history and stuff like that is amazing. And I think he truly loves God and has great intentions, but unfortunately he's not in communion with Rome. But so anyway, explain like the excommunication stuff that happened after Lefebvre did that with the ordaining those bishops.
Yeah. So, it was very interesting. The lead up to the 1988 Acone consecrations were met with essentially talks from Rome. And Rome was talking to Archbishop Lefebvre and saying, "Hey, we'll let you have a bishop and stuff like that." I know that it kept getting moved back. I need to look a little bit more into why it kept getting moved back, but I think they were still trying to kind of iron some stuff out with the canonical status and stuff like that. Even so, with it getting moved back over and over and over, it was one of those things where I would not impute any malicious intention on the part of the Vatican for the consecration date getting moved back. But that was enough for Archbishop Lefebvre to get super paranoid and then basically be like, oh, they're trying to, screw me over. And so he just went through with the consecration and basically just gave the finger to the Vatican. Now he was excommunicated. I'm trying to think of the Latin term. I want to say de facto, but it's not de facto. I think it was maybe ad divinis, but he was excommunicated per the code of canon law automatically for consecrating bishops without the explicit approval of St. John Paul II. Now they love to make this whole supply jurisdiction argument, and you'll even have like articles like 1 Peter 5 by Dr. Peter Kwasniewski try to argue, well, St. John Paul II consecrated a bishop without the Pope's approval, so therefore, how is he any different than Lefebvre? But St. John Paul II consecrated a bishop under communist oppression, like you said, with the intention that the Holy Father would likely approve of that action. He wasn't doing it as a rebuff to the Holy Father, and he didn't likewise have access to the Vatican to say, hey, can I consecrate this bishop? Archbishop Lefebvre did. He was not in a communist country. He was in Switzerland, of all places, which is completely peaceful, and he could have readily wrote either Cardinal Ratzinger, then Cardinal Ratzinger, now our Holy Father Pope Benedict, or contacted the Vatican, and he didn't. He got super paranoid, and he just said, "I'm going to go off and do my own thing." So he got rightfully excommunicated. And the ramblings of this or that canon lawyer saying, "Oh, well, he had supplied jurisdiction." No, he didn't, because again, he did it as a direct rebuff to the Vicar of Christ, who gives out all jurisdiction at the end of the day, right? You can't have jurisdiction outside the Pope. Otherwise, you set yourself up really as like a counter church or a counter Pope. Now, after he did this, he had a totally he went full schism mode. I mean, full schism. Like I read an interview that he gave shortly before he died in 1991. And this interview was, I think, in February 1990. It was 2 years after the Acone consecrations happened. And he's saying all these things about, well, Rome needs to reconcile with me. Like, I've done my part and Rome needs to reconcile with me. And next time we're leading the talks and we're going to have our way and stuff like that. And I'm like, for a guy who claims to be traditional, he should have, studied well Vatican I and all the, respective popes that led or popes and bishops that led up to that. You don't pull that kind of thing in the Catholic Church. None of the ultramontanists who were the trads of Vatican I would have at all approved of his conduct or behavior. So it's like he fully nosedived in the schism. And so from there, I can understand why the society bishops are incredibly schismatic. It's because they clearly got it from their mentor,
And their whole idea of recognize but resist is completely ahistorical, and just their overall theology is untenable for like anything, right? Like it doesn't add up
Yes.
or make sense. So would you say that the overall summary of the SSPX is that they are not formal schismatics, but they are material schismatics? Going by all evidence of 3 consecutive popes, all the stuff that you just laid out, they are, for all intents and purposes, in schism, and that you shouldn't attend any churches, even though it may fulfill your Sunday obligation. that you should avoid them unless it's basically an emergency circumstance where you can't find any other parish. Correct?
Yes, I would agree, because you have to ask yourself, why are you attending that mass there if it's not for like an extraordinary circumstance? I think 9 times out of 10, when you press people on that, they do have that very schismatic attitude that St. John Paul II was warning against. I would also go so far as to say, ironically, I'm completely against their position. And if Modern Monarchist is watching this, he's probably going to laugh a little bit. I love that guy. He's so funny. Great talking with him. But Novus Ordo Watch, despite being in error because they're sede vacantes, do a great job disproving the recognize and resist thesis. Not because of anything they actually write themselves, but because they refer to papal documents that literally say like and condemn every single position that they have. I mean, Leo the 13th literally has a letter to like the French Bishops' Conference saying you can't compare one pope to another and claim to be like disobeying like the current pope by being fidelitous to the prior pope. He said, that's one line. He says you can't write badly about the pope in any media or anything like that, any newspaper or journal, or you're committing grave sin. And I think he even says like purporting kind of like schism and wounding the body of Christ. So he just like completely goes off on that entire position. It's incredible. And even like they like to use the whole example of Paul rebuking Peter in Galatians. But if you read any church father's commentary on the book of Galatians and that interaction, it's clearly disproven upon their